I should have known something was off when she gave me the cologne. It was our 10th wedding anniversary. Not a milestone that warrants a marching band, but big enough that I had reservations about her gift being a bottle of cologne I already owned and disliked. A subtle slap in the face wrapped in tissue paper and sprayed with fake enthusiasm. "Do you like it?" she asked, eyes wide with practiced innocence. "It's thoughtful," I said, lying better than I felt. We were seated at the same Italian place where I'd proposed to her a decade ago, over candlelight and nervous laughter. That night, she'd worn red. This time, she wore detachment. And new earrings. "You're wearing pearls now?" I asked, trying to sound curious instead of accusatory. She reached up as if she'd forgotten. "Oh, these? A gift from Lisa." "You've met Lisa." I had. Once. Briefly. The kind of brief that doesn't leave room for pearl-level gift-giving. But I let it go. Because that's what I did back then. Let things go. Overlooked the lipstick stains that didn't match her makeup, the shower running at odd hours, the sudden gym obsession. The way she started putting passwords on devices that used to sit open on the kitchen counter. The waiter brought dessert. She picked at her tiramisu like it owed her money. I just stared at her, wondering how we'd ended up as strangers who shared a mortgage and a Netflix password. Then she said it, offhand, like we were discussing the weather. "I think we should take some time apart." "Time apart," I repeated, as if saying it slower would make it less absurd. "You've been distant," she added, like that was the punchline to some joke I hadn't heard. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so backwards it could have moonwalked out of the restaurant. Before I could respond, her phone lit up. She reached for it too fast. I caught a name, Brandon. She tilted the screen away like a child hiding candy, then smiled. Just Lisa again. Lisa, the generous pearl gifter and now compulsive texter. Got it. I nodded, smiling like a man who hadn't just felt the tectonic plates of his marriage shift under his feet. I reached for my wallet, paid the bill, and told her I was going to walk home. Alone. "I'll call you later," she said, sliding the phone into her purse without looking up. "I'm sure you will," I replied. The night air hit me like a wake-up slap. My shoes echoed on the pavement as I walked past shop windows and puddles that reflected back a version of myself I didn't recognize anymore. That night, I didn't cry, didn't scream, just poured myself a whiskey, sat on the porch, and watched the wind bend the trees in ways they weren't meant to bend. Something was wrong. I didn't know what yet, but I could feel it, like a storm building in the bones before the thunder ever rumbles. And that, my friend, is where the real story begins. 3 days after our anniversary dinner, my phone buzzed while I was shaving. Unknown number. No message, just a missed call at 6:14 a.m. Now, I don't know about you, but in my world, 6:14 a.m. is either for emergencies or mistakes. This one turned out to be both. Later that morning, I was packing for a short work trip, 2 nights in Phoenix, just me, a carry-on, and a pitch deck no one would remember. She hovered in the hallway, arms crossed, watching me like I was some lab experiment she wasn't sure would survive. "You packed the Navy shirt?" she asked. "I always pack the Navy shirt." "Right," she said, biting her lip. "Just making sure." She was acting like I was going off to war, not a conference with stale coffee and bad PowerPoints. And that's when the second text came in. From that same unknown number. "Enjoy your trip. I'll take care of her. B." No emojis. No context. Just B. Like a bad Bond villain. I didn't show her the message. I just slipped my phone into my back pocket and zipped up the suitcase like I was sealing in a secret. We hugged goodbye at the door. She lingered just a beat too long, enough to make me wonder if she was guilty or just theatrical. "You okay?" she asked. "Why wouldn't I be?" I said with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. She didn't answer. The plane ride was uneventful. The hotel was average. The meeting went fine. But my mind was back home, chewing on every little detail. The new perfume. The text from Brandon, or Barry, or Brad, or whoever B was. The next night, I couldn't sleep. Something about the silence in the hotel room felt too manufactured, like the world was holding its breath. Around 11:30 p.m., I pulled up our shared phone plan. She said she was home watching a documentary, but her location showed she was 5 miles across town, at a residential address I didn't recognize. I zoomed in. No mistake. She was somewhere else, and she wasn't moving. I stared at the dot, unmoving on the screen like it was mocking me. Then I opened a browser, pasted the address, and got a name. Brandon Keller. Sales consultant. Lives alone. Divorced. smiling in his LinkedIn photo like the kind of guy who gets his hair cut weekly and never skips chest day. The next morning, I flew back early. Didn't tell her. Didn't call. I needed to see something with my own eyes. When I pulled into our driveway, her car wasn't there. It was 7:48 a.m. She was at yoga, she had texted. That's when I decided to stop playing house and start playing detective. I cracked open the laptop. Same passwords. Same desktop. Opened her email. Nothing obvious. Then I checked the drafts. That's where liars hide their dirty laundry. And there it was. A message to Brandon. Half written. Never sent. He doesn't know. Not yet. I'll keep playing it cool this week. After Phoenix, The rest was cut off. But I didn't need the rest. That was the moment everything changed. Not because I knew. Because now, I was done pretending I didn't. By the time Friday rolled around, I had two things, a name and a plan. I played it cool. Walked through the door like nothing had changed. Smiled at her. Kissed her cheek. Asked how yoga was. She lied. I nodded. She smiled. I watched. It was a game now. Not a fair one. Not an honest one. But a game I was finally playing with my eyes open. Saturday night, I followed her. She said she was meeting Lisa again, with that same fake sparkle in her voice that used to mean surprise weekend getaway, and now meant don't ask questions. So I didn't. Instead, I waited 10 minutes. Then I got in my car and drove. I tracked her phone to a small cafe on the edge of the city. Not exactly romantic, but private enough. Dim lighting. Outdoor tables with fake candles. I parked across the street, engine off, and waited. At 7:17 p.m., she walked out. Not alone. Brandon Keller, in the flesh. A little shorter than I expected, but smug made up the height difference. He touched her lower back in that we're not new to this kind of way. She laughed like she hadn't laughed with me in years. They got in separate cars, but it was synchronized, like a dance they'd rehearsed a dozen times. I followed him. Yeah, him, not her. I knew where she'd end up, our house, eventually, playing the role of loving wife with her toothbrush already dry. But he was the variable. He was the wild card. And I wanted to know what kind of man helps tear another man's life apart. He pulled into a cul-de-sac. Neat lawn. Dog bowl on the porch. A second car in the driveway, same one I'd seen on the GPS earlier that week. I didn't get out. Just sat there, watching. That's when a woman stepped out of the house. Not my wife. Not his ex. His current. She looked tired. Like someone who'd been lied to more than once and still hoped this time would be different. He kissed her like he meant it. Like she was the one. Then he walked inside, and she stayed on the porch a minute longer, just standing there. Alone. That's when the irony hit me. The man wrecking my marriage was cheating on his own partner to do it. Which meant I wasn't just dealing with betrayal. I was staring straight at a pattern. Now here's where it gets fun. The next morning, I mailed her a letter. No name, no return address. Just 3 words typed on a blank sheet of paper. Ask him everything. Tucked inside? A photo. One I snapped the night before from across the street. Brandon. Her porch. 2 lies about to detonate in real time. By Monday, I had a text from my wife. You're acting strange lately. Is something going on? Yeah, something was going on. She just hadn't seen it explode yet. But trust me. She would. The letter landed harder than I expected. Tuesday morning, my wife didn't go to work. That was the first flag. The second was the silence. Not the peaceful kind. This was tactical. Calculated. The kind of silence that slithers through a house before the storm hits. I found her in the kitchen, making coffee like she hadn't just been living a double life in high heels and perfume. You're not going in? I asked, letting my voice ride the thin line between casual and bait. Didn't sleep well, she said without turning. Thought I'd take a day. Right. Of course. Nothing helps with emotional exhaustion like French roast and pretending your lies aren't falling apart. She poured herself a cup, leaned against the counter, and stared at me. I mean, really stared, like she was trying to find a version of me that still didn't know. That version was gone. You okay? She asked. Innocent. Concerned. Well practiced. I'm good, I said, and took a sip of my own coffee. Why wouldn't I be? She didn't answer. Didn't need to. Because in that moment, I knew she'd received the letter. And the photo. And, more importantly, the doubt. Good. I went to work. Didn't really work. Just watched the hours roll by, checking my phone like I was waiting for a confession that never came. Instead, I got something worse. At 4:16 p.m., I got a text from Brandon. Yeah, him. We need to talk. That was it. 4 words. 0 apologies. No explanation of how he got my number, which, by the way, was a neat trick unless my wife handed it to him. I stared at the message like it was written in another language. This guy wanted to talk? No? I didn't respond. Not immediately. I went home first. She was already there, sitting on the edge of the bed like someone waiting to be sentenced. You saw him, she said quietly, eyes on the floor. I did, I replied, setting my bag down. I also saw his wife. Her girlfriend. Whatever she is. She nodded. Slow. Shame crawling up her throat but not quite making it to her face. I didn't know about her, she said. He told me they were done. I almost laughed. They always say that. Affairs run on 2 things, secrecy and recycled lines. I sat in the chair by the dresser, not the bed. That was intentional. She looked at me then, really looked, and I saw it. Not guilt. Not regret. Fear. Not the fear of losing me. The fear of exposure. Of losing her comfort, her lifestyle, the security blanket I'd unknowingly been funding while she played house with a walking haircut. I'm sorry, she said. No, you're not, I replied. You're sorry you got caught. Silence. Then, how long have you known? Long enough. Why didn't you say anything? Because I wanted to see how far you'd go, I said. Turns out, you're not just unfaithful. You're ambitious. She flinched. I didn't. She reached for my hand. I didn't give it. I didn't plan it this way, she whispered. I felt invisible. Like you stopped seeing me. There it was. The fallback script. You made me do this. If only you'd been more attentive, I wouldn't have been forced to sneak around with some guy who uses hair gel unironically. I stood. You weren't invisible, I said. You were just looking for a mirror that flattered you more. Then I walked out. Again, intentional. Let her sit with that. Let her marinate in it. But Brandon? Brandon wasn't getting off that easy. I texted him back. Tomorrow. 8 p.m. Depot parking lot. Don't be late. Because now it was time for answers. Depot parking lot. Industrial. Isolated. A few sodium lights humming above cracked pavement. Exactly the kind of place where things get said that don't belong in daylight. Brandon pulled up in a glossy silver Audi like he was expecting valet. I was already leaning on the hood of my truck, arms crossed, calm. He stepped out, adjusting his jacket. Same fake confidence he wore in the pictures. Thanks for meeting me, he said. I didn't shake his hand. Didn't offer a nod. You've got 2 minutes, I said. Make them count. He looked surprised. Like he expected a guy broken, not boiling. I didn't know she was married at first, he started. Then I found out, and, yeah, I should have ended it. But you didn't. No, he admitted. I didn't. There was a pause. Long, heavy. Then he said something that, weirdly, caught me off guard. She's not who you think she is. I raised an eyebrow. Try me. He looked down at the pavement. She said you were cold. That you buried yourself in work. That the marriage had been dead for years. Classic. Rewrite history, cast yourself as the hero who swooped in to save her from a life of folded laundry and unmet dreams. She ever mentioned that I paid her student loans? I asked. That I supported her through her business degree, even when it meant 2 jobs and a busted back? He looked up. Said nothing. Did she tell you about the miscarriage? I asked. How I held her through the worst night of her life while she begged God not to take our baby. His mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. I stepped forward, slow. She used to call me her rock. Now I'm just the doormat she wiped her feet on before walking into your bed. I didn't mean for this to happen, he said. Weak now. That makes 2 of us. I turned and walked away, my footsteps echoing in the empty lot. And right before I climbed into my truck, I looked back and said the line that had been waiting in my throat for weeks. By the way, I sent your girlfriend the picture too. He froze. So did his breath. Then I drove off. And for the first time in months, I actually smiled. The day after I met Brandon in the parking lot, things in my house got oddly quiet. My wife walked around like a ghost dressed in yoga pants. She didn't ask how my day was. Didn't check her phone like before. It was like someone had hit pause on her personality. But that's the thing about silence, it's not peace. It's pressure building behind drywall. That night, I came home to find the table set. Not paper plates and leftovers. I'm talking candles, cloth napkins, actual silverware. She made lemon rosemary chicken, which she only cooked for 2 reasons, Christmas or guilt. I raised an eyebrow. What's the occasion? She smiled that soft, guilty smile I used to fall for. I just thought we could talk. I sat. Not because I wanted to make amends, but because I wanted to watch the performance. Dinner started awkward. Her eyes kept searching mine for something an opening, maybe. A sign that I'd crack and let her rewrite the story. I didn't. Halfway through the meal, she finally broke. I ended it with him, she said, softly. I didn't say a word. Just chewed. She blinked. I thought you should know. That's supposed to change something? Her jaw clenched. I'm trying, Logan. No. You're reacting. She set her fork down, the metal clinking like a bell before a boxing match. You're not exactly easy to talk to. Not lately. No? I tend to get cold around people who lie to my face. She looked like she wanted to cry. I wish I could say I cared. But by now, her tears were like tap water, predictable and tasteless. What do you want from me? She finally asked. I leaned back in my chair. I want you to know that I know everything. That the man you were ready to throw a decade away for? He's already done this before. Twice, in fact. She stiffened. Yeah, I said. One ex-fiancé. One ex-wife. Both cheated on. Both walked away when they realized they were just stops on his layover. She didn't respond. I leaned in now. I want you to understand that I'm not stupid. That every time you blamed your late nights on Lisa, or those networking events, or yoga, I knew. Maybe not the details, but the weight of it? I carried that alone for months. Still, she said nothing. Just blinked fast, like maybe if she stared hard enough, I'd disappear and take the truth with me. I stood up, walked to the sink, rinsed my plate. My hands didn't even shake. I'm not mad anymore, I said quietly. That should scare you more than if I was. She stared. I dried my hands, grabbed my jacket, and tossed one last line before I walked out. Oh, and Brandon's girlfriend says hi. The next morning, I checked into a hotel. Nothing fancy. Just clean sheets, strong coffee, and space to think. I didn't text her. Didn't call. She texted once. Where are you? I left it on read. Over the next 2 days, I started moving my stuff into storage. I didn't announce it. Just chipped away at the foundation until only she was left standing inside the hollow shell of what used to be us. On the third night, I got a call. Not from her. From Brandon's girlfriend, Claire. She found my number the same way I found hers, via silent, mutual betrayal. When your heart's been stomped on by the same pair of shoes, you tend to walk in similar directions. We met at a diner just off the highway. Nothing romantic. Just coffee and ruined timelines. I left him, she said, sipping slowly. Smart. You really mailed me that photo? I nodded. Anonymous letters are a dying art. She laughed. It was short, tired, but real. You know what the worst part is? She asked. It wasn't even about love. For either of them. Just boredom and ego. I knew that feeling too well. She slid a flash drive across the table. What's this? His phone backup. I got into it before I walked out. Photos. Messages. Voice memos. I didn't flinch. Just took it and tucked it into my coat. You're not going to use it to hurt her, are you? No, I said. I already did that by staying silent for so long. We sat in silence for a minute. Two people who had been hit by the same meteor, comparing crater sizes. Funny, Claire said, swirling the last of her coffee. They wanted adventure. Instead, they set off a chain reaction they couldn't control. Yeah, I said. And they forgot something important. She raised an eyebrow. They weren't the only ones with options. Back at the hotel, I plugged the flash drive into my laptop. There it was. A 6-month thread. Brandon and my wife. Codenames. Inside jokes. Hotel receipts. Even a few voicemails where she called him her real home. I watched it all. Listened to it all. And not a single piece of it hurt anymore. Not because I didn't care. Because I'd already buried the version of me that did. This wasn't heartbreak. This was the forensic phase. The evidence catalog. The calm before the reconstruction. And once I finished copying everything to my backup drive, I opened a folder titled The Exit Plan. Because the next move? It wouldn't be loud. Wouldn't be angry. It would be calculated. There's a misconception that revenge is emotional. Wild. Explosive. But let me tell you, the most devastating revenge? Calculated. Patient. And, above all, quiet. That's where I was now. No longer in the storm. I was the storm. Calm, controlled, precise. Step 1. Leverage. The flash drive Claire gave me didn't just confirm the affair. It gave me context. Patterns. Dates. Brandon's fondness for using his work email. My wife's flair for poetic betrayal. Turns out she loved writing him long, dramatic messages about how she felt trapped in our marriage, like I was some warden she needed rescuing from. Pity she forgot who built her prison and who held the keys. I printed 5 emails. Just 5. I highlighted nothing, didn't add notes, didn't even label them. That was the art of it. The recipient would do the math themselves. I slid the pages into a nondescript envelope and addressed it to Brandon's regional sales manager. The kind of man who wears cologne that costs more than your rent, but who's still terrified of HR. Brandon's firm had a zero-tolerance policy for interpersonal entanglements with client partners. I made sure to include one email where my wife referenced the work trip he sneaked her into. They wanted to play house? I just evicted the both of them. Step 2. The assets. Here's the thing about building a life with someone. You know exactly where the cracks are. You also know where the fuse box is. I wasn't interested in taking her for every penny. No, that would make it about money. This was about precision. While she was out, probably at another fake therapy session, I walked through the house and collected every item that I had personally bought. Not what we bought. I bought the couch, the TV, the espresso machine she never figured out, the speakers she called overkill, the rug from our trip to Santa Fe that she said clashed with the paint, but still bragged about to her friends. Gone. All of it. I had a crew come in and take everything while she was gone. Left behind the marriage certificate, a frozen chicken, and a sticky note on the fridge. Now the house matches the relationship. Empty. By the time she got home, she walked into a living room that echoed. She called. I didn't answer. Step 3. The detour. On Friday, she showed up at the hotel. I saw her through the front glass, scanning the lobby like a widow looking for a body. She spotted me, made a beeline, and didn't even wait for a greeting. You humiliated me. Not you left me. Not I'm sorry. Just straight to the victim monologue. Not yet, I said, calmly. But we're getting there. She stared at me like I'd grown horns. What do you want from me? She asked again, voice low and shaky. You asked that before, I said. Still the wrong question. She folded her arms, defensive. Then what's the right question? I sipped my coffee. What happens next? That shut her up. She sat across from me like she was negotiating a hostage release. I'm willing to go to counseling, she said. Too late. I'll cut off all contact with him. Already done. He lost his job. Her eyes flared, just a little. What do you mean? I sent your love letters to his boss. No commentary. Let the content do the work. She started, but stopped. She wasn't sure how to finish that sentence. Mad? Betrayed? Offended? She had no moral high ground left to stand on. You destroyed his career, she whispered. No, I said. He did. I just returned the receipt. She sat there, stunned. Why are you doing this? She finally asked. I leaned forward, not smiling. Because you tried to make me small. You thought I'd fold. Walk out quietly. Let you rewrite the story where you're the brave soul who found happiness while I'm some cold, detached robot. She said nothing. So now? I'm showing you what a cold man really looks like. The divorce papers were filed that Monday. Uncontested. Efficient. She didn't fight me on the terms. Smart. I wasn't cruel. I didn't take the house. I didn't touch her savings. But I did ask for one thing, a statement. A written admission of infidelity. She balked at first. Said it was demeaning. I told her it was my line in the sand. She signed it the next morning. My lawyer, a shark in lipstick, nodded and said, you could have taken a lot more. I just shrugged. I didn't want more, I said. I wanted her to say it out loud. A week later, I met Claire again. She was doing better. She smiled more. Laughed easier. You still have the drive? I asked. She nodded. You need it back? No, I said. I need the original. She handed it over. I walked out into the parking lot, slid it from the envelope, and snapped it in two. Let the ghost stay buried. Claire smiled when she saw it. Closure? She asked. I shrugged. No such thing, I said. But this? This is a decent substitute. Now, I live in a place with fewer mirrors. Not because I'm ashamed, but because I don't need reminders of who I used to be. He was good. He was loyal. But he was blind. Now, I see everything. And I sleep like a man who finally stopped flinching at shadows. Freedom doesn't come with fireworks. It comes in silence, like waking up without dread. 3 weeks after the divorce was finalized, I bought a condo on the edge of town. Nothing fancy. Hardwood floors, a balcony that overlooks a sleepy street, and just enough space to remind me I no longer shared my square footage or my life with a stranger wearing my wife's face. I didn't jump into therapy. Didn't post cryptic quotes on social media. I just started living again. Coffee and peace. Walks without checking in. Evenings with a book instead of watching a woman pretend she wasn't texting someone under the table. But healing isn't just doing new things. It's also about facing the old. One night, I pulled out our old photo albums. She left them behind, which felt fitting. Why take pictures of a life you never meant to keep? I flipped through them one by one, not out of sadness, but out of curiosity. What did I miss? Where were the cracks? You'd be surprised how easy it is to spot a lie in hindsight. The fake smile. The distant eyes. The way she always angled herself slightly away from me. It wasn't rage I felt. It was confirmation. I hadn't heard from Brandon since he lost his job. I figured he'd gone underground, licking his wounds, probably telling himself he was the victim. Guys like that don't reflect, they rationalize. But life has a funny way of circling back. One afternoon, Claire sent me a message. You'll never believe who messaged me. Attached was a screenshot. Brandon. Reaching out again. Apologizing. Asking for closure. Fishing for sympathy like he hadn't shattered 2 homes. Claire didn't bite. But she offered me the chance to reply on her behalf. I declined. Not because I'm the better man, but because I'd already won. Brandon had lost more than a job. He lost his mask. And you don't come back from that. Let the man rot in his own reflection. Claire and I stayed in touch. We met for coffee every other week. Never crossed any lines. It wasn't romantic. It was 2 survivors leaning on each other's calm. The kind of calm you earn the hard way. 6 months later, she showed up. Not Claire. Not Brandon. Her. My ex-wife, standing outside my condo, in the same coat I once bought her for Christmas. I opened the door, leaned on the frame, and waited. She didn't speak at first. Just looked at me like I was a dream she wasn't sure she deserved to have again. I'm not here to cause problems, she said quietly. Then this'll be a short visit, I replied. She offered a sad smile. You look good. I am good. There was a long pause. I've been doing a lot of thinking, she said. About what I lost. About how blind I was. I didn't respond. She needed to say it, not me. I ruined something real. You were loyal. You were solid. And I threw that away for someone who couldn't hold a candle to you. I folded my arms. Why are you really here? She hesitated. I just needed to say it. Even if you never forgive me. I needed you to know I see it now. I nodded once. You said your piece, I replied. Now go. She looked like she might cry. But she didn't. And I'll give her credit, she didn't beg. She just whispered, take care of yourself, Logan, and turned to walk away. I closed the door before she reached the stairs. Not out of spite. Out of mercy. People think revenge is about destruction. It's not. It's about restoration. See, I didn't destroy my ex-wife's life. I just removed myself from it. I stopped letting her eat at a table I built. I stopped bleeding so she could feel alive. Now, I'm building something new. Work's going well. I sleep better. I take more road trips. I stopped apologizing for being the kind of man who values loyalty, peace, and truth. Claire and I eventually lost touch. And that's okay. Some people are chapters, not endings. But one night, I stood on my balcony, sipping a drink, and I realized something important. I'm not broken. I'm refined. Betrayal didn't ruin me. It revealed me. And now, when I look in the mirror, I see a man who walked through hell and didn't stay there. So no, this isn't a story about heartbreak. It's a story about remembering who the hell you are. When the world tries to make you forget. And as far as I'm concerned, that's the best revenge there is.